My name's Julie Brown. I'm the president of Columbia Valley Little League. I'm an Invermere resident and I grew up playing ball. I inherited it a few years ago through a series of funny events, and we made it through a couple years of COVID. And here we are with our first real season, growing as a league, and our first home tournament on our new diamond. The Columbia Valley Little League has a rich history in Invermere with baseball and precedes me by a few decades. I have been involved as the president. This is my 4th season. I ended up in the role because a very clever and kind human sort of tricked me. I offered to help out and she wrote me an email saying, "Thanks to Julie for volunteering to be the president." And we had a good laugh about it and I just surrendered. This is my 4th season as the president, and at this point, particularly with all the momentum and the excitement and the new diamond, I've surrendered that I'm going to see this through for another few years, at least until we get the diamond all the way complete. One of the things you get when you're the president of a Little League is a lot of emails from the Canadian National Little League. And one of the emails that came through was about this grant program from the Jays Care Foundation. We thought it would be a good idea to apply for the grant because we certainly needed to upgrade this diamond. It was in a bit of a death spiral and, you know, it was in disrepair. We couldn't put kids on it, it wasn't safe. And it hadn't been renovated in about 40 years, substantially renovated. So we put together a plan and we took a year to overhaul our books and get all the other criteria. And then in the fall of 2021, we started the application process in October, which was extensive. We actually did some out-of-the-box thinking, and I put together a little podcast with 4 community members talking about their experience on the diamond and the history of the diamond and relaying the Indigenous culture and history of this place. We talked with people that played on the first game on this diamond in 1964 when it was called Pine Logs Ballpark. It's on the property of Pine Logs. And then we put together a little movie with a whole bunch of kids, my children and other children in the league. And we threw it in there and we thought, we'll just give it our best. And we were so thrilled when in December, we found out we'd made it through the first round.
My name's Q and this is Liam. We made a video with some other friends and it was just kind of showing how bad the diamond was.
That's way back. Well, now what do we do? Is that a full round ground rule double? Let's go, Blue Jays! Let's go! Oh, God! Oh, man, we really need an overhang for our backstop.
Yeah, we do.
Oh, my ankle. We really need a better mound.
I was really happy when we won the Field of Dreams to upgrade our field because it sucked before.
I really like playing on this field now because the infield is replaced, the dugouts are nicer, and it's just all around way better. We're looking forward to playing on it for a few years.
So this diamond was first built in 1964 by a collective of community members. In fact, there was a wooden outfield fence that all the community members came out and built it together. There was a backstop and an infield. One of the people that was involved in that was a guy named Corbin Mitchell, also known as Corky, and he was the groundskeeper for Pine Logs. And that history's been relayed to me by his son, who was involved in this renovation. The next major contribution to the diamond was from the Rotary in 1981 and 1982, and they made a substantial investment of community time and fundraised monies to replace the outfield fence. They built the dugouts, they replaced the backstop, and they did another infield. And they renamed it from Pine Logs Ballpark to Rotary Ballpark in 1981. Since then, there's been no substantial upgrades. It's maintained by the District of Invermere, but over time, ball took a bit of a turn, and it was a very big deal in Invermere in the 90s. This diamond hosted the North American Fastball Championships in the 90s, the Indigenous Fastball Championships, with a team called the A's. And after that, ball kind of took a downturn. Soccer turned up, ball turned down, but as Ken Mitchell says, ball never dies, it only takes a hiatus. So ball is building again, and it's back on this diamond. This is the first today. Over the last few years when I inherited the league, there seemed to be a real appetite for ball. I grew up playing ball. I have a son whose passion is baseball. And so I thought, well, let's give it a go. The appetite's here. So we started, overhauling the way we did registration. We went digital. We reached out to the region and we built relationships with Cranbrook and Kimberley, and we joined a regional collective. So now we play games against Kimberley and Cranbrook and Creston. This year we've hosted this tournament, stepping up because each town now hosts a different division to spread the joy. I think that really it takes a real community effort, and it takes not just the appetite and the leadership, but it takes people being willing to join the effort. And what's happened here is in Invermere, we have seen that rising. People have come out to contribute. The contributions from the local businesses, has been heartwarming and very generous. And the people that have showed up to coach, to be on the board, to organize the equipment. Even we have a relationship with Tuxedo Sports in Calgary because we don't have a local ball store, and he literally drives the equipment out to us. So this has been an exercise in relationship building and creating connection within our community and between communities. So with the Jays Care Foundation Field of Dreams granting process, we made it through round 1, which we found out in early December. And then they sent us quite an extensive list of to-dos for round 2. So I had to have engaged support from the District of Invermere to get through round 1, but it was fairly vague. Now for round 2, I had to go and present at council and get a vote from council to support the application and the permitting process should we win. I had to reach out to every vendor here in Afar, find shale, which I found in Cache Creek. We had a lot of support from the Lions Club locally. They provided us with a ton of information and know-how, and we detailed out the budget. We had a whole fiscal responsibility, organizational structure section. It was a very extensive application that went in for the end of January. And then we waited, and we waited. And then with great joy, we found out, secretly I found out, and I had to not tell anyone, which is actually very hard for me. And we found out in early April, and we weren't allowed to announce it until the Jays announced it on Sports Center on a pre-game show in mid-April. So we gathered some of our players and our coaches and our family members at a local bar and restaurant, the Rocky River Grill, and we put them in front of the screen for Sports Center, pre-game show of a home game of the Jays, and they went crazy when they found out. And they ended up being on the front page of the Pioneer, our local paper, with the kids' hands all in the air, thrilled about this grant. But I'll tell you, it was a very exhilarating moment to realize that A, all that work and all the hype went into something, but more importantly, that our kids were going to feel so proud to have this amazing new space to play on, because let's face it, the last 2 years were not easy on the kids or anyone. And to give them this right now was really a moment I cherished. And it happened very quickly from there. We had already kind of queued up the shale because we knew we needed to replace the infield to get kids on it. So the shale company out of Cache Creek were very supportive and generous. They had already got a pile of shale in their yard with our name on it should we win. They came 2 weeks later. Ken Mitchell came in and did all the machine work pro bono, pulled out the infield. Byron of Norcon came in and was the contractor. The District of Invermere worked with us in tandem, and we pulled this renovation off within 1 month to get the kids on it for the 2022 season. So one thing that's very notable about a small town is it takes volunteers, because the staff and the infrastructure of a small community is also small, which means largely the community programming is run off the backs of volunteers. And so getting this grant was really significant for us. For a community of our size to have this much money earmarked for a renovation is very difficult to achieve. And you know, this is on some pretty prime real estate. And there's always the question mark of what will happen to it. Will it stay a recreation site for children, or will it actually become a really fabulous condominium site by the beach? That question was in the air, and we're so thrilled that that question is gone now. Because with this granting monies, we have secured the future of the Diamond and, you know, removed it from the table of development. So this community and the volunteer requirement to pull this off is quite extraordinary. And interestingly, we had a new person join the staff of the district. This new person that had moved from the much larger center really noted the difference of the larger center having more money earmarked with a larger tax base compared to a small community where it really relies more on grants. This community runs on a lot of grants, all of our sports, including our winter lake activities. They have pursued numerous grants. This is how communities like this function. So I grew up playing sport, and I think sport is such a great place to learn really important values and lessons for life. We learn how to win with grace, and we learn how to lose with grace. We learn how to have good conduct and to take pride. We learn what it means to work hard, and we learn that when we aren't successful, that the best thing we can do is go back and try harder. So team sport is something that's really important to me and for the future generation. And I think that, you know, there's a part of me last fall, I was tired too, right? We were all stressed, and I really thought about if I had the bandwidth to make the application. And I thought, you know what, I'm fortunate. I live with a lot of privilege of health, of community, of family, and if my bandwidth can take it, it's actually incumbent upon people that are doing well when we watch the collective do poorly to rise and to make the contribution for the next generation. So I'm grateful to be in a position to do that, and I'm super thrilled that it was successful. And it's time. It was time. We needed to rejuvenate this, and it was incumbent upon this generation to set it up for the next one, just as Rotary did in 1981 and the Pine Logs Group did in 1964. So it's just part of the narrative of life and the rolling forward from generation to generation, and us taking it in turn to step up. One of the other really important dimensions of a sport organization, and particularly baseball, is actually your umpires. And you can't have a game without umpires. One of the things we really focused on this year at a board level was to begin to cultivate umpires at the youth level. So we sent 3 young players down to Cranbrook as part of their umpire training program. And we have a couple senior umps that are willing to mentor them and bring them up and cultivate them, because going forward, if we're going to grow the league, we have to grow our umpires. So we have one very committed ump who is our mentor and does all our home games, and we're very grateful to him, and the youth that are going to take on the next chapter of that. So next year, for the 2023 season, we've already talked about how we need to recruit even more youth players to be going down to get trained. because at some point they will take over and become the next generation umpires for this league. And ultimately, it will be their age group that begins to shape the future and the culture of this sport in Invermere. The culture here in our house league is one of inclusion and opportunity, and we want to make sure every child that wants to play ball comes out here and has the chance to learn, to connect, to make friends, and to feel part of something. This is really important to us. So we have fairly clear guidelines in place for all of our coaches to make sure all of our players get equal opportunity to play and learn. And in the future, we would really like to pursue a Challenger program, which is also supported by the Blue Jays, to support people of varying abilities to engage in the sport as well. That's a future plan. This year, for the first time during my tenure, we had a regional meeting of presidents of the East Kootenay. And what became very evident to me is that there's a momentum for ball throughout the entire region, in the East Kootenay and also in the West Kootenay. Collaboration within the region has been extraordinary, and it's very evident that there is huge momentum for ball in the region of the East Kootenay and also in the West Kootenay. So there's a lot of exciting years to come, I think, and that's what really sold me on staying in and continuing to develop this diamond and upgrade it further and seek more grants to bring it up to a level where I know it can sustain itself for the next couple decades before the next resurgence effort needs to be initiated. We are very excited for the future. I'm optimistic for the momentum and the growth in the league, for the future of the sport, and ultimately, the health of a league is about connection and about opportunity to connect, and community health is built on connection. And you know, the ballpark is such a great place for people to come out, linger around and watch a game and connect and have a catch up with old friends and people you haven't seen all winter. So we're very excited for this granting opportunity that has given us a resurgence of life and it increased the health of our league in our community and the outreach it can create for children and community well-being.
So my name is Eric McLaughlin. I'm a director with the Columbia Valley Little League and coach of the U12 Majors. And as you can see, I actually take baseball quite seriously and got a foul ball in the face just a few days ago. Just having Julie Brown, the president of the club, having her drive the whole process of it behind us, there's no way that this would have happened without a person like that, her specifically, without it happening. Just to be able to get it to where it is now, it's been a godsend, essentially. There's not really any other way to put it. Just watching it happen and feeling the pride coming back into the ball diamonds now and seeing kids playing on it in a tournament of this scale, it's been many, many years since I've seen that, and it's just all because of her. There's and the rest of the board members that helped her, but it was definitely the driving force behind that. I've been part of Columbia Valley Little League for many, many years now. I've had 3 children now go through this. I've been coaching for about 12 years now as well. It's been very rewarding coaching the children over the years and just watching them grow and develop. I've had numerous children come through, and it's just been so rewarding as being a part of that, watching them develop and just being able to help them get to the next stages in their baseball careers. With the field prior to the renovation, I grew up playing on this field back when I was 11, 12 years old, and that was in the early 90s at that time, and it was actually in fairly well condition then, but just watching after baseball sort of took a downturn in the late 90s, just the condition of the field, it just deteriorated. It had a bit of lack of maintenance on it and just not as much use, so it just sort of fell to the wayside. And then when I actually heard about the Field of Dreams grant that had been applied for, I was absolutely over the moon about it. I was hoping, fingers crossed, that we were going to end up with that grant. with all the work that was done. And then when the announcement came through, I just knew I was going to be able to help with the behind the scenes stuff when it came to the renovation on this, because I'm an employee of the District of Invermere, and then being on the board, I was able to take some information and help guide the right process on getting the information to the right people to have things happen quicker. And then, yeah, I've been a part of it with just even the ongoing maintenance of it now since the new infield was put in. Yeah, so being a coach, when we first started, we actually didn't have any uniforms for these kids. And then just with the community drivenness, a lot of the businesses, they either had family members, like be it grandchildren or nieces or nephews on the teams, and they stepped up to start to sponsor, and they bought us all of the jerseys and the uniforms for the players. And just seeing that, and then with the sense of pride that the children got when they received those, it totally turned their spirit into being more active into ball. They wanted to show up. They wanted to develop themselves more as they could. And just watching that development throughout the year, at the start of the season, we actually had a few players that had never played ball before in their lives, and now you can't tell the difference to them when they're on the field. Just watching those kids develop, it gives you that warm, fuzzy feeling. With the Field of Dreams grant, just giving the optimism for everyone after the past 2 years with the COVID, and then now seeing it culminate into this tournament that we have right now, and just the gameplay that's been happening on this. It's amazing just watching everything that's happening, and going forward, I can't wait to see the next couple phases of upgrades that's going to be happening. So when it came to the start of the renovations, there was a work bee that was planned. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend it myself, but when I came back and saw the results of it, I was flabbergasted. And then hearing stories of the number of people that came down to be able to help. There was actually a story that was told. There was a gentleman that was walking by early in the morning with all of the equipment and people that were down here working, and he just happened to ask one of the other volunteers about what was going on, and he was filled in about that there was a work bee to upgrade the diamonds, whatever else. He actually came back that afternoon with his son, and they cleaned out one of the dugouts on their own, and they painted for many hours, just even as a second homeowner that had nothing to do with the league. It just shows the sense of community that we have, that people see these sort of things and they want to be a part of it. It makes me feel incredibly proud to be a part of that, of this area.
The other Julie on the board that has helped extensively in this project, we were discussing what should we call this tournament, and she's like, I know it's overused, maybe, Field of Dreams, but it really always gives me those goosebumps and that warm feeling from the movie, and so I reached out to the Blue Jays Care Foundation and asked them for permission, and they gave it to us, and they're thrilled that this tournament in Invermere, the annual tournament, the first annual tournament this year, will forever be called the Invermere Field of Dreams. My name is Julie Brown, and I'd like to thank you for watching and joining the conversation about Columbia Valley Little League.